TV intern and Pillar Point Productions are on. So
And Delia's on via telephone.
So is that the telephone at the bottom?
Yeah.
All right. So call the meeting to order. Roll call.
I'll do it. Director Seaton,
here.
Director Clark,
Here.
Director Sukamel,
Here.
Director Dye,
Here.
and Director Blanchard.
Here.
Okay, and I'm General Manager Chuck Duffy, and we've got Legal Counsel Bill Parkin. And Claudia Marshall. Hi, Claudia.
Hey.
Do we have any public participation? Is anyone from the public who would like to speak on an item not on the agenda? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to the regular agenda.
Madam President, I just want to note that there were no reportable actions from closed session.
Thank you. Sorry, forgot that. All right, report on parks and recreation activities. Claudia, did you want to report?
Well, there has not been a whole lot of activity. All of the classes and recreation events were canceled. We canceled early in the month of March after we got the shelter in place restriction.
Okay. All right.
And I wanted to add that I'm in contact with the current instructors to hopefully start planning we are starting to plan the workshops and the classes, and hopefully we'll be able to start in the late summer. And if not the late summer, then the fall. And I'm also continuing to work in the planning process on the Burnham Park process with Director Dye and the building and planning staff and K&K as well.
Thank you. We are hoping to have a preliminary plan for Burnham Park for our May meeting. There is a possibility that because of the difficulties of an online meeting, we may want to postpone it another month. We can, I guess that's not really on the agenda tonight. Could we talk about pros and cons of postponing it, or would it be better not to, Bill?
What exactly did you want to talk about?
Whether, we have a preliminary plan for Burnham Park, which we would like to share with the public.
Right.
The plan had been to put it on the
Right.
May agenda.
Right.
But now, given the limitations of this format and the need for a robust public participation, I wondered if I could ask people's thoughts on whether it would be better to wait another month for a public, hopefully.
Yeah, I think well, we have a future agenda items. Do we still have the future agenda items at the end of the agenda?
Yes.
Yeah, you could always do it there, although this, I guess, fits within the recreation report. So I'd feel okay with you discussing that.
Great. Does anyone have any thoughts?
You're not taking action.
No, we would not be taking action. We'd be taking public input on the current draft plan, which Director Seaton and I have been working with the county and with K&K on. And I feel if there is it would be great to get the community engaged and involved in the process, but just at this meeting, I'm realizing how difficult it would be to do it. And I'm sure that our next meeting, our May meeting, will also be a Zoom meeting. David, what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, I think considering that things are going to be, even if we had a meeting in person, I think there's a lot of people that want to participate that aren't going to want to go because we're still going to be under limited things. So I think it's one of those things where let's get it out there, and it could be a matter of, multiple different, opportunities for once we have the meeting, it gets disseminated, over the course of a couple weeks, and then whether we have it again when we meet in person. I think, I'm in favor of doing, whether it's a special meeting or having it as a specific agenda item so that we could start getting feedback on what we have right now.
So you'd like to bring it to the May meeting, even if our May meeting is a Zoom meeting like this?
Yeah, I think so. With the idea that we can, that there doesn't have to be action taken, that we could just put it out there at that meeting and, agree to make any decisions at the following meeting.
Okay, well, that's good
Just-
feedback. Anyone else have any thoughts on this?
Why don't we put off a decision on this, because the May meeting is like 5 weeks away,
Mhm.
and things may change.
Okay, that seems
We
like,
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think they will, but they might.
okay. I think that's, and I guess, talk about, I know that we were going to talk about the status of the ramp and closing of the Burnham Strip parking area. Can we talk about that here?
Yeah, I got yelled at by my uncle for saying, we close that down, and it's the same exact people that instead of parking over there, are just jamming up the streets by the post office and everything else. So the net effect of doing all that is just more congestion and just so that's one of the angry people that was yelling at me.
Well, I want to give some credit to Delia, who came up with a good selection for the skate ramp. When you read the county order for closures, there is no question that we were required to close that. So it's not as if we had an option and this is something we decided we wanted to do. This is something that we were required by the county to do. And by putting the chain across, it really has eliminated what was happening, which was groups of young people who were there congregating in an unsafe manner. So I think it's good that we have handled it in a responsible way, and we'll do our best to manage things going forward. I made a sign that said, please reserve these spots for post office users, and I put it on the first parking areas below the green ones, so that maybe that would convince a few people not to park there who are trying to go across Route 1. So we can keep, but I've noticed whenever I've gone by the post office, there's a lot of cars there, but there's usually 1 or 2 spots because people do come and go really fast. So although people are unhappy about it, I don't think it's really unworkable. I think people can get in there and get their mail and get out generally. Anybody else?
I'd like to give a shout out to both Barbara and Delia for quick action on getting the barriers and having them up, and that was great. You really moved fast and made it smooth.
Actually, I'd like to give Tony Young some credit as well from Sam,
Yes.
because he helped quite a bit in getting the barriers.
That was
It's not-
Who's Harry?
Hello?
Hi, Harry.
Can you hear me? I'm getting some music.
Yeah, you might want to take off Harry.
Does anybody know what's going on? Okay.
We have someone named Harry who's coming in with some music. I want to thank the community member who I put on next door that I needed caution tape, and somebody donated some leftover from a birthday party. And then I went in, before we had the chain solution, I went in. I have to tell you, that slope, it's really hard to climb up there.
It is.
Tough to get the
It's
caution.
slippery.
Hard to do, but we did manage to resolve that, and hopefully we'll have it back in operation as soon as it's a smart thing to do. So we're doing our best for the community. Jim, did you want to say something?
No, I'm also thinking.
All right, so moving on, anything else on that topic?
I was just gonna say too, maybe to think about, because I feel like summer program, same thing, any signups are gonna be, regardless of what gets lifted, it's gonna be limited participation. If we can maybe think of something where there could be a outreach on something that's, facilitation wise, where people could do it at their own, whether we create some type of you know, stops along the way or something where we could have some level of engagement, knowing that people are still going to want to, you know, have their distance as far as, you know, plan some activity that could be, you know, tracked or some, you know, scavenger hunt, something along those lines that, you know, because that's where I see, regardless of what gets lifted, there's not going to be engagement for anything. But I think if we could do something along those lines, it could have a good impact.
There you go, Claudia. There's a challenge for you.
Scavenger hunt.
Or follow the county ordinance.
Yeah. That's what we're going to do. We will comply with the county ordinance as we have.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on.
Oh, excuse me, Barbara. This is the only Parks and Rec item on the agenda, and it's for information. So I will say that this is about the pump track at Quarry Park.
Oh,
No
sorry,
news.
I should have asked you.
Yeah, there's no news. Nick Calderon was called in to the county to help on their COVID-19 response way back at the beginning of March, and everything else has just been left alone. His, you know, his main job has been now is keeping people away from the parks rather than in the parks. So that's what he's busy doing, and there has been no movement on that. They haven't sent out the bid papers. They don't have a cost estimate. They have nothing new to tell us.
Okay. Well, that's too bad, but I guess, you know, it is what it is under current circumstances. Anything else? All right. Consideration of the independent contractors agreement for general manager services.
Shall I take that, Chuck?
Well, I'll just keep my mute button on.
Sure.
So before you is a contract for Chuck's services. I will note that this is our standard contract, but that there's been one change from previous years that I do want to flag for you. And that deals with indemnification. And I don't know if you have the document in front of you, but it's paragraph 5B is the one that I just want to point out to you. Previously, indemnification clause says that the general manager is responsible for any and all negligence. It's kind of that's a pretty onerous standard, given that if Chuck were an employee of the district would cover any negligence by a manager. And you know, he's not physically changing pipes or doing repairs himself or anything of that nature. So this was modified to say that only to the extent caused by gross negligence or willful misconduct. There's some other minor language changes in there, but that's not to bore you to death, but that's the crux of the thing that was changed. It used to be just, you know, negligence was all that was required. So it's a higher bar. It would require gross negligence and willful misconduct. And really that's consistent with what statutorily the district would be responsible for if Chuck were an employee. So it seems to be a reasonable request. And, you know, I've worked with the language, so I'm okay with this language, but it's clearly it's up to the board, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But that's the rationale behind it. So currently Chuck's contract would apply to simple negligence. And now it's going to be gross negligence and willful misconduct.
Seems reasonable.
My first question was, it says in accordance with Exhibit B. I see an Exhibit A, but no Exhibit B.
Oh, Exhibit B is our standard schedule of charges due to X.
Oh,
So I can
yeah.
circulate that to everybody. Yeah.
All right. And then my second one was if it has to be, you know, I think everything else is good, but, you know, if we have to be tied into 3 years, if we can go with 2 years just to give us that opportunity to revisit it again, especially considering everything.
Either party can terminate with 30 days notice at any time.
Yeah, so,
That's section 4.
yeah.
So
But
I-
why not, have the opportunity to discuss this in 2 years? I mean, what is that something that you're requiring, or is it just a request?
No, our standard services agreement is for 3 years. Myself, Bill's, our engineer, it's just our standard services agreement. So it's no different than anybody else's.
Yeah. 2 years goes by very quickly.
And like Barbara says, you've got the 30-day provision, so.
which I think is fine. I mean, I saw the 3 years and I thought, huh. And then I looked and saw the other and I thought, okay, fine. I mean, we're very happy with Chuck Services at this point. So I'm perfectly happy with this. Anyone else have a comment? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll second.
So motion by Jim to move the approval of the contract. Second by Matthew. All right, further discussion.
I'll just point out a nitpick, the 5A, GSD hasn't been changed to GCSD.
Good catch.
Anyone else? Eric, comments?
And then what is Exhibit B? When's the last time? I mean, it's the same exact one that was last agreed to? Have prices changed at all since our last agreement?
Well, our last agreement was 3 years ago, so I'm sure prices have changed. I believe my billing rate is 180 or 185. So, but I can send that to you. I actually tried to pull that up, but I couldn't get it off of Dudek's website. So
That's something we can wait on until we get
I
that.
can pull the existing one, I think.
Well, I think David has a point that we should have the exhibit of the rates before we approve this.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So shall we table this motion till the next meeting?
yeah, or you could agree to the 185 and my exhibit won't matter, but I can change my exhibit. So
Is
Are
is
you
it-
sure of that number? What if it's 190 and?
then I'll lose $5 an hour.
Let's sign him up.
So Chuck, is there anything else on that exhibit? Any other rates on that exhibit?
Yeah, there are. So we could postpone it. That's fine. Yeah, but I mean, we use Chris Auger, who posts our website stuff and does some of our web stuff, but that's an hour a month. We've used Paula Melendrez in the past for our books and whatnot. But yeah, I can circulate.
It's the principle of the thing. I don't think we should
I get it.
contract.
Oh, I
with
get it. Yeah, so we'll grab that exhibit and circulate it.
Just so you know, the 2017 standard schedule of charges was 185 for district general manager.
Well, then we better see the current rates and we'll postpone this and consider it at our next meeting. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Do we have to vote to postpone it? No, we're fine.
No, you're just
Or can we
continuing.
or can we make a deal now? 185.
Okay, anything else on that item? Moving on to the sewer authority mid-coast side. Okay, there's a lot going on at the sewer authority mid-coast side. One of the major issues is that the audit has come through for 2017 to 2018, and you heard me right. This is the audit for 2 years ago. They, and I need my paperwork, but they issued essentially a letter saying that things were not done properly. And so now Sam needs to reply to the criticism set forth in that discussion and that letter, the management letter. And it was all set to be approved at the last board meeting, and instead it was pulled and referred to the SAM Finance Committee, which is going to be working to try to clarify some of the language and make it better. The expectation is that because this audit is really driven by the previous management of SAM, both financial and the general manager, which continued through the 2018-2019 period, that the next audit will also be bad. So this is, I think it's really important that SAM respond correctly, properly to these documents and make the case of the major improvements. I mean, I think that's the important thing, is that now SAM has new staff in place, both a new general manager, a new finance person who seems very competent. They have additional consulting help. They provide backup. They have 2 separate consulting companies helping them with different aspects of the financial records and so forth. And that it's really been a major change. So that's what needs to be clearly communicated, I think, that SAM's operations are now running at a much better run manner. Jim, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's fine. No, the audit was the biggest thing. We have a reserve, and so we're also trying to build up the reserve.
Well, it turns out we don't need to build up the reserves anymore for SAM because, and it's
Sure. Well, yeah, the
They help
reserve
me
is
with
right.
this.
You're right.
But I actually talked to them and pointed out that even though they were $600,000 more or less under the mandated reserves as spelled out in their reserve policy, they were only counting 2 accounts, the LAIF account, which is the state account that invests money for agencies, and their money market account as reserves. But they had $2 million in their checking account. And so, I don't know, I'm not an accounting nerd. I said, well, how much, your monthly rate is evidently about 400,000. And guess what? Their current accounting consultants and the current and Kishin agreed that they can transfer some of that $2 million into the state investment account, and voila, the reserves are covered. So we don't have to come up with more money
Oh, very good.
for reserves.
And they've artificially done this for years. They've got 3 different accounts: the LAIF, the checking account, and the money market. And they keep too much money. They keep too much money in the checking account, which doesn't earn any interest, and they could be earning another $30,000 or $40,000 a year, as I pointed out to Barbara, if they put it in LAIF. And they're just arbitrary vessels for cash. They've got $3.8 million in cash, and I think their requirement is something like 2.2. So they've got more than enough in cash reserves, no matter where the cash reserves are sitting. That's the bottom line.
And a lot of this came from Chuck. Chuck talked me through all this. And so, but I think it's really good that it's new management there. I really feel like it's a new SAM, new financial people, new manager. And they said, yeah. And they talked to these other consultants. They said, no problem. You can move some of that money into LAIF. And now the whole thing of asking us to come up with more money to cover their reserves has gone away.
Could I just mention one thing? I'm moving money from your checking account to LAIF and the other way around is a pretty common thing when you're paying bills and watching, what the expenditures are and what the checks that are coming in from the county and so have you. So I don't understand why someone at SAM wouldn't say, oh, let's just move the excess in our checking account over to LAIF. It's really just a matter of a phone call. They don't really need an expert there to tell them to do that. That's more or less common sense. So I don't know why it's such a difficult thing for someone to figure out over there.
Well, with Chuck's, suggesting it, and I proposed it to them, and they said, oh, okay. So that's one piece of good news. And then we're going to be working on trying to get some of the other, it's not so much that things aren't, everybody agrees that there were issues with the financial management over those 2-year periods of 2017 through 2019. But making sure that it's clear that these problems have been addressed now. So that's good news.
Yeah.
Just a little work.
And Barbara, we didn't get into this because I wanted to solve the immediate issue of do they have enough cash to meet their reserve requirements, what they do, obviously. But I think the second step here is kind of what Delia was talking about, is they only need a checking account and LAIF. I don't know why they have a third account. And, you know, interest rates are only at 2%, but back in the day when they were at 7%, that'd be real money that isn't earning. So
It's
the standard
it's still real
operating
money.
procedure, the standard operating procedure, the way we do it with our districts is you have a couple $100,000 in checking, you keep all the rest of the money in LAIF, you do your check run each month. And if it's a $400,000 check run, you take $400,000 from LAIF, put it in your checking and cut your checks, and that maximizes your interest. But, you know, we haven't touched on that, but that's kind of the long-term goal, which should be for.
Actually, just so you know, I keep a $50,000 balance in our checking account. And then I transfer money from LAIF when we get ready to pay warrants.
Right. Yeah, I was just using round numbers, whatever the whatever the number may be.
Well, Sam also has a salary accounts payable account. So there's 4 accounts.
Right. And I don't understand why, but that's something you could
So
bring
the
up.
finance committee is going to look at this and hope, you know, things, I guess what I'm trying to say is things are a lot better, but there's some things that really need to be figured out about the documentation in the current audit. So
Are you waiting to share more information on that, or what's like in terms of what, is that something that's, you know, in terms of the specifics of it?
well, in the last SAM agenda packet. And it'll be in the finance committee agenda package. The finance committee is meeting next Tuesday.
Yeah, I think Barbara cut out, David. The management letter was in the last SAM packet, and where they described, the accountant described the deficiencies in the accounting, and then Sam has to respond to them.
And they haven't responded yet?
That's what the finance committee is going to be talking about.
Right.
They're meeting to discuss a response to it. Okay.
Yeah. So on Tuesday. And there'll be an agenda package for that you can look at.
Yeah, but Barbara,
Yeah.
and I agree with you. The nice part about this was an issue I raised 2 years ago or 3 years ago when they allegedly had a reserve shortfall. And I pointed out then they didn't now.
Right.
The nice part about the new, you know, the staffing is Barbara emailed them and say, hey, you could do this, this, and that. And lo and behold, they went, yeah, we can, thanks. And they went and did it. So I agree with Barbara. It's a little different world over there.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there are a few other issues, but, you know, we'll keep you posted on those. Should we move on to the wet weather storage?
Yes.
This to you last time. As you know, the bids for the wet weather storage came in as high as they did the first time they bid it. The low bid was $1.3 million, and the agreement with the Regional Water Quality Control Board was that they would subsidize $300,000, and that would have required, you know, the SAM budget for the agencies had been. Wait, do you have the numbers on the top of your head, Chuck? Can you?
Yeah, the original budget estimate for the wet weather storage was $650,000 a year ago. We got a bid a year ago for 1.25 million. We rebid it, Sam rebid it 2 or 3 months ago. The engineer's estimate went up from 650 to 750 or 800, and the bids came in at 1.3 basically. So,
But there is a SAM budget item that we had agreed to for.
And that was the 750 or 800, something like that.
Right,
Yeah.
which would have been subsidized. So that at our last, not the immediate past, but the SAM meeting before, the question on the table was that should we just forget the fine and eliminate the project and just pay the $300,000? Or should we pay $1 million divided among the 3 agencies, take the 300,000, pay the $1 million and still put this in? And there was some resistance on the part of Half Moon Bay to doing that. And it was also in closed session. And the feeling was that it didn't belong in closed session. So it was pulled out of closed session, considered at the meeting on Monday night. And on Monday night, the recommendation from staff was to go ahead and rebid it and to add an option to bid on a $400,000 storage facility. And Chuck, can you talk about that a little bit?
Not really. The 400,000 gallon option kind of came out of, well, not kind of, came out of left field. I don't know. You know, we were vacillating before all this. I was vacillating on whether we needed 200,000 gallons or 100 would suffice. And then all of a sudden we had 400,000 gallons came in. Barbara knows a little more of the background than I do, but I know the deep background. This wetweather storage site was originally possibly planned for 600,000 gallons, but you know, it was decided to build 200,000 gallons and kind of see what happened. I don't know that we ever need 600,000 gallons based on what we've seen the past 10 years, but I don't know. I also don't know why we would go out and bid a 400,000 gallon project when the 200,000 gallon project, you know, we don't even know if that's necessary, and it's twice our original budget. So I don't know why we'd go and
the reason was that the board went ahead and said, yes, go ahead and do it, was that it would just, the bids were to be for both, not just to bid on one or the other, but to bid for 200 and 400. The thinking was that there would be some major economies of scale and you'd get more storage.
Right.
That doesn't totally, you know, that was part of the thinking. Also part of the thinking is that construction prices may, costs may change in the near future. So at this point, now the board agreed to send this back out for the rebid, for the process of gathering more information as to whether this is necessary. And at the same time, there's going to be a study done about other ways to deal with some of the equalization issues that this would address. Is that right?
Yes, they're going to do a flow study and see each agency's contribution. I also want to point out that when they go out and bid this project, this is a project that will have to come back to each individual agency for approval. And Sam also doesn't have the easements from us for the additional 200,000 gallons nor the 400,000 gallons. And that's obviously a bigger impact now than it was 10 years ago or 2 years ago, because we've got park plans for Burnham Strip, and that's where these tanks are going. And so there are a lot of issues here, and I think Sam's putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but they're going to bid it, so we are where we are. So,
as the previous bids, the most recent bids have all expired now. So
right.
They're rebidding it. So we will bring this back to you at this point. I mean, it's kind of the same place it was last time we talked about it with this board. And so we're going to have a new set of bids, and we'll bring the same issue back to you that we brought back to you before. So.
Barbara, there was the minutes for the March 9th meeting. This was talked about, and there were questions to be answered, and it was postponed. And then we don't have the minutes for the meeting on the 23rd, but on the agenda, there was an item to authorize the general manager to enter a contract with SWCA Environmental to provide biological services for the Force Main project, not to exceed $49,000.
Okay, I can tell you about that.
Okay.
So this is the Granada Force Main, which is the last piece of the IPS repair that needed to get, the last of, the major part of the IPS repair, at least the Granada through, the parts that really needed to be fixed. So they had a bid, they had a contractor, the contractor came in. The SAM staff went out and met with the contractor on the site, showed them the plans, showed them where they were supposed to be doing it, get them all set up, and then left. The contractor then changed the plan. And one of the things, they put out the whole pipe and then they fuse it together. And so they need a long distance to spread out the pipe and do the fusing. So they did that. They were supposed to do it to the south, which is where that bikeway is and so forth. And it was on their plans and everything else that's what they were supposed to do. For some reason, the contractor decided to do it to the north. So the contractor laid all this stuff out to the north, and guess what? There were some willows in the way. So they completely wiped out all the, I have to say, not a whole big area, but doesn't really matter. The principle's the same. Wiped out some willows in a sensitive habitat area and a drainage, and impacted sensitive habitat areas. Also, there's this thing that they do when they send the pipes through the ground that occasionally they use bentonite mud. There's no chemicals in it. It's just bentonite, mineral bentonite. They use that to do their drilling, and some of it can bubble up to the surface. It's called fracking, which is not the same as the other fracking, but it's not a good thing. In addition, when they went by Rocket Farms, they figured, they looked at it and they didn't see that there was going to be a problem. But then it turned out that Rocket Farms had a drain coming from their greenhouses down into that drainage area. And between the time that they checked it out and the time that they did the drilling, they put all this water and all this fertilizer down into that drainage. And that softened the ground. So a whole bunch of the bentonite mud came up. So the city of Half Moon Bay came and said, stop. You're not complying with your permits. You had to protect the environment. You had to do this. So Sam had to hire a biologist, which I guess the contractor is going to have to pay for. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I think so. And the whole thing got stopped. They had to then also move some of the I don't know, there are a couple other things that they had to do. Then they had to get Fish and Game and Quality Control Board and Corps of Engineers to sign off on the come and look at it. And they made, mitigation measures, and they're going to do it better. And so that's what the $29,000 is for the biologist report. And now everybody signed off. They say it's okay. They can start it up again. And now they're waiting for the contractor to come back and start the project again.
All right, so that 49,000 was not to assess future impacts, but impacts that had already taken place.
Yes. And you can see it if you drive down the road. You can look over.
Oh, it's there. I know. They haven't, and nothing has changed since. Well, the willows are starting to grow back.
You can't take out willows. That's what I don't get.
Oh, they knew that. What's that pipeline company?
I don't know. The company.
Oh.
Why are you smiling, Chuck?
Unusual name.
Did I tell that story right?
Yes, and you didn't demonize Half Moon Bay either, so appreciate that.
Yeah, no, they had to shut it down.
They had to, right?
If in some ways they, well, whatever.
I know.
But that's where it is. And so now they're hopefully I guess the contractor hasn't come back yet. The contractor is going to have to pay some costs because it was the contractor's mistake. So, and now in the future, Sam has arranged to have on call someone who will, it's going to cost more money. So for projects like that in the future, they're going to have a Sam staff person on site during, I'm not sure for the whole time, but at least for a longer period, because they probably should have had somebody keeping an eye on this contractor earlier in the project. Would you say that's fair?
That's right. So it could have been.
They should have had somebody there, would you, Chuck, would you agree that Sam should have had somebody there longer?
Yes, absolutely. It's a big enough project and a short enough time frame that they would need somebody. Yeah.
All right. Well, new people at SAM, they made a mistake, but it's not going to happen again because they've already taken steps to make sure that that kind of thing doesn't happen again. And they have someone on call who is going to be there to monitor projects like this in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you. My last comment is it's at least a minor miracle that they got the Corps of Engineers especially, but everybody else to sign off on this as, and not, there weren't big fines, and this happened like lightning, really, considering the environmental regulations. So I'm surprised. All right, thank you.
0, 6, 0, 4, 8, 4, 1, 0. At the tone, please record your.
Hello?
Hello, Valerie?
Hi, no, I'm just getting some feedback here for some reason.
Well, we have a
Sorry.
new person who's joined the meeting. It's Valerie.
I'm sorry?
I think it's a mistake.
Yeah,
This is Delia. Yeah, something happened. The system read off some numbers to me for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what that was.
All right, so moving on. Anything else on those? So things are happening at SAM.
Before we move on, Barbara, it's
Yes.
a point of procedure. Matthew was reading off the minutes from March 9th, and it looks like it was a 5-3 vote for the wet weather storage expansions to put off awarding the construction contract. There's still a big issue here of, can the SAM board approve that construction contract? I mean, that vote could have gone the other way theoretically. And, Bill, this will be an issue for you more than any of us. We are still operating under the existing JPA, and the existing JPA requires each member agency to approve a project. Now, this project was on the SAM budget, but not to the extent of, it was, I'll pick $800,000 versus 1.3. So putting something on budget. So, and I think that was one of Half Moon Bay's issues, Barbara, if I'm not mistaken, is they believe this should go back to each of the member agencies. And I think your board should be aware of that, SAM shouldn't be unilaterally approving a project unless Bill says they can. I don't think Bill said.
We already brought it back once to our board. So yes, I agree.
Yeah, but my point is they took a vote on that. If that vote had went the other way and gone 5-3, Sam would have been effectively awarding the contract to Anderson with no legal basis.
Are you sure it was a vote to award the contract?
Well, no, the motion was to put off awarding the construction contract. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
But it makes them seem like they have the say so. And I think this is a big enough project that it would come back to the member agencies. I don't want Sam to operate under this assumption that that project's in their control, because Half Moon Bay doesn't believe that, certainly. And I don't know that we do either.
No, as I recall, that vote was, there was a concern that this is being discussed in closed session, and the feeling was that it was a open session topic and we should defer it. And before you move on, actually, let me just say one thing about the SAM budget. The SAM budget had been put together. All the agency managers signed off on it. It was to come to the SAM board, a vote to send it to the agencies. Based on the news of the, particularly for Half Moon Bay's revenue issues that has come out, that they are, they're facing huge shortfalls this year. Kishan asked to withdraw the budget and see if he could do more cost cutting for the year ahead. So it's going to come back either at the next SAM meeting or the following meeting, which will delay the timeline on the budget a little, but it seems like a good move on his part. So that's where we are on the budget for SAM. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? So a lot happening at SAM these days. Consent agenda. Do I have to read all of these, Bill?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, you don't have to read them all.
Okay. Does anyone want to pull anything off the consent agenda? Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Fine.
David, did you vote? Okay, looks like you voted aye, right? Not your
Everybody voted aye, it looks like.
committee reports, seminars, conferences, or committee meetings. Okay, nothing there. Information calendar, attorney's report,
No report.
general manager's report.
And nothing further.
Administrative staff report.
I just want to point out that I have a life statement attached, and we'll be providing that on a quarterly basis. I think we can put it up on the consent agenda in the future. But other than that, I have nothing more to report.
Yeah, Delia, you can just include that with the financials. Yeah. In the
Okay.
consent, yeah.
I would like to just mention that I am coming into the office on a regular basis. There's nobody else coming in, so that I'm allowed to do that and safe in doing that. And we've actually had a little bit of activity. Nobody's coming into the office, just a few phone calls here and there and trying to get caught up. So if anybody needs me, you know where to reach me.
Thank you.
Hey, Delia, are we reviewing and accepting permit applications at this time, or are we not?
If I receive any in the mail, I will. I haven't had any come in. I've talked to a couple people about them, and assuming that they provide the application with all the other requirements, I will certainly process it. They'll be sending it to me in the mail.
Great, thank you.
I have one item that maybe could come in here. I don't know if you've all seen the horrific pictures of the 2 failed pumps from Montera that were full of flushable wipes, causing all kinds of, which has cost them thousands and thousands of dollars. Like $8,000 for the first one, and I don't know how much for the second one that just happened. There are some, I see that Delia, thank you very much, put up the Don't Flush Flushable Wipes poster in the post office.
Actually, I think Tony did that.
Oh, Tony did that, good. Well, I don't
Sam.
think further we could do, to even have any ideas, because it really is a serious problem everywhere.
Yeah,
The only place I can think of to put them would be in public restrooms. I put one in our restroom here in the office, but of course nobody's seeing it right now. And I think Tony may have put one over at the Easy Mart as well. Restaurants might be a good place to put them, but other than that, I have no suggestions.
What we've done.
Can I suggest that I can put a notice out through Nextdoor and through our email list, both? And if you, Barbara, could give me those numbers on what it's costing on the pumps to clean them out, I'll include that.
Well, actually, Tim Costello from SAM has posted on Nextdoor. He posted the photo of what the pump looked like. It's disgusting. On Nextdoor that everybody can see. I guess it wouldn't hurt for us to chime in as well. So I'll get together and figure out how to do that. But it seems like, at this point, we're lucky we don't have more backups in homes. Because
Do
people
we have a Facebook page?
You can also do Coastside Mothers, so you mentioned doing that as well, posting it on Coastside Mothers.
Well, we in the past, and Delia, maybe you could contact Chris Porter from Recology. Sometimes we piggyback on their bills if they have little blurbs and newsletters. That might be a simple thing. Yeah, and that basically gets to just about everybody in the district, certainly more so than we could. We haven't had any problems at our Naples Beach pump station, but you're right. We've had issues at a couple pump stations down here, and Montera has, and a lot of other people have as well. So.
Yeah, and I think one of those in Montera was a SAM one, so that's costing us money.
Right.
Right.
I'd like to suggest that we contact CASA and probably our state legislators and urge them to look at this issue. And I don't know why they can print flushable on those packages, because everybody who looks at it knows they're not flushable. You know, and California's got a lot of strong environmental laws that we're the first in the country. And if we could get the state to move on this to change that, I think it'd make a difference.
Well, Matthew, they have actually been working tirelessly on this for the past 4 years with CASA, CSDA. We've got our SCAP, which is our Southern California Association. They've had some luck with some of the bigger manufacturers, but it's the generics. You know, if you take, there's a big difference between a Charmin flushable wipe, believe it or not, and you know, your Vaughn's flushable wipe. But they've been fighting this for a long time because, you know, this was causing problems back when. It's just gotten exacerbated because people are taking the Clorox for the COVID and throwing them down the toilet. And some of those aren't meant to, they don't even say flushable. They're not supposed to go down there, but people have thrown them down there. So it's been a hot button item in that industry for 5 years anyway.
I know, I'm aware of that because I have seen it on the occasional CASA or CSDA thing I read. And, but that's basically all it ever says is we realize it's a big problem and we're working on it.
Yeah, well, it's like everything else, Matthew. They've got more money than us. Especially now that toilet paper is going for $15 a roll. So
We had a presentation at SIM from Jim, I don't know if you remember the name of the group, I don't offhand, from people who are putting together a coalition on this. And we agreed to give them some funding because they seem very effective. And I know Monterra actually had them come and give a presentation to them and agreed to make a donation. Maybe we should see if we could track that down and invite them to make a presentation to GCSD as well.
Okay.
And ask them. All right, engineers report.
John Rayner's continuing coordinating with the county on the new pedestrian bridge at Murata and our sewer main. So what we're doing is we're proceeding with the design of the sewer main over the bridge. We're hoping it's a race in time between that and the bypass through the state parks land. So it's a little bit of a, whichever one wins first, but we're hoping we won't need to put that pipe on the bridge. And the county is quite honestly hoping we won't need to put the pipe on the bridge because it hangs lower than the bridge. It's not really, it's unsightly, if you will. So I think what's gonna happen is if we go with a temporary system, we're gonna set up that pump station in the manhole and just trench up to the northeast there and to that gravity section, whatever that is, 75 yards up the road, rather than put anything on the bridge. But, he's apprised of that and in constant contact with the county and state parks on that.
Can I get a tour?
Keep forgetting
Yes.
the tour. I'm gonna start the email right now, Barbara.
Thank you. Anything else for future agenda items? Anything else for discussion? Okay. I guess I need a motion to adjourn.
Nope, you can adjourn it. You got the power.
Bang, bang. Motion.
Can I just ask a quick question? Is our director willing to sign checks tomorrow?
I'll come in.
Okay.